Tropical storm Beryl is getting stronger with hurricane impacts expected for portions of the Leeward Islands. Your forecast across the Caribbean and Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. It's good to see you on a Saturday morning. Coming up, I have all the newest information on Tropical Storm Beryl as it continues to get stronger. Expected to become a hurricane well before impacting the Lesser Antilles, especially the southern side of the Lesser Antilles, as we get into late Sunday night and throughout the day on Monday. Thank you to all of our new subscribers and finding me here at Meteo Mundo. I've got you covered during the entire event. The first thing I want to talk about here in the video is that I will be going live today at 5 p.m. That's Atlantic Standard Time and Eastern Daylight Time. We'll get a updated full forecast report from the Hurricane Center at 5 o'clock. That'll be a new advisory. And I'll have the latest on Tropical Storm Beryl and the impacts for the Caribbean. So please join me live today at 5 p.m. And I hope I don't have to change this to Hurricane Beryl by then. But Beryl is getting stronger. It's going to be a significant storm. There's no doubt about it. Let's talk about what's happening here. As of the 8 a.m. advisory for the Hurricane Center, Beryl now has winds of 60 miles an hour, 63 if we're not rounding down, but it's a strong storm. Moving off towards the west pretty rapidly right now as well. Pressure down to around 998 millibars. Beryl is looking very impressive on satellite imagery. We have a good blowup of thunderstorms right there near the center of circulation. We have very solid outflow on all four quadrants. Beryl is running into extremely little wind shear at this point in time. And again, we mentioned how that's very unusual in the Atlantic Basin for this time of the year to have these tropical waves moving in that have wind shear, that don't have wind shear and aren't really fighting to stay organized. We have a area of high pressure in the mid levels of the atmosphere just to the north that is pushing an easterly wind to go along with the easterly trade winds that are driving Beryl as well. So there's no wind shear at the low or the mid levels of the atmosphere, and Beryl is just forecast to get stronger and stronger. Let's take a look at the visible satellite imagery here early on this Saturday morning. And again, Beryl extremely impressive looking here on our high resolution satellite imagery. You can see some of those higher cloud tops there, especially right at sunrise this morning. Beryl is a very concentric storm already, and the Hurricane Center notes that we're either going to have a continued strengthening or even rapid strengthening over the next 24 to 48 hours. This is the forecast track of Beryl. Again, as we get into later tonight, there is an opportunity here that this could already become a Category 1 hurricane. The official forecast from the Hurricane Center is either later on this Saturday or early Sunday morning. Beryl becomes a Category 1 hurricane. You can see the wind fields associated with Beryl there in the outlines. The blues are going to be your tropical storm force winds, and then the force winds in purple, and then in the pinks, those are going to be your hurricane force winds. Right now, the forecast is for it to become a major Category 3 hurricane right here as it gets close to Barbados and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that is going to be early on Monday. Right now, that would be a weaker Category 3, but friends, a potential major hurricane moving through the Lesser Antilles here throughout the day on Monday. If you see this orange slash line, that is a hurricane watch that has been issued by Barbados. That is right now the only watches and warnings that are currently in effect for the Lesser Antilles. Now, we've had some rain already today. I want to be clear that this has nothing to do with Tropical Storm Beryl. There is another tropical wave ahead of this that is moving through the area right now. So we've already had some gusty winds and some heavy rain in some areas of the Windward Islands, but this has nothing to do with Beryl. This is another tropical wave well out ahead of it. Of course, there is Beryl, and unfortunately on the heels of that, we have another tropical wave with a pretty good chance of development. Not forecast to be as strong as Beryl, but could also be moving through the exact same areas as Beryl as well. We'll take a quick look at the spaghetti plots. These are going to be your forecast track models, and again, there is a fairly tight cluster with these models. The Hurricane Center has not really shifted this track here since yesterday afternoon when it became Tropical Depression number 2. You notice the lines are very tightly clustered just south of Barbados and then through St. Vincent and the Grenadines. A few of them get a little bit closer to Grenada, a couple get a little bit closer to St. Lucia, but this is a pretty tightly clustered pack right now. Again, because this is going to be an area of low pressure, and that's what a hurricane is as it moves through. So if I zoom in here and I just show you, if we have an area of low pressure right here, obviously we're going to get the counterclockwise winds. So the winds are going to be obviously moving in this area as it comes through. It means that the stronger easterlies are going to be on the north side of this. So we're going to have lesser impacts areas south of the center of circulation, although there will be some significant impacts, potentially even tropical storm impacts down towards Trinidad and Tobago. But the strongest winds in that push of water is going to be on the northern side with the easterly winds. And we're going to have all different kinds of hazards to be talking about here as we go through time. So let me get rid of that illustration, and then we'll get into the actual forecasting of this and take a look at some of the models. Again, that's the here and the now. A couple of other things to pass along here as far as some of the potential impacts. And again, this is from the Hurricane Center. I only pass along official messaging. They're expecting a storm surge of 2 to 4 feet above normal high tide, 3 to 6 inches of rain to come along with this. Now, Beryl's going to be moving pretty fast. Okay, so we're not going to have an inundation of rain, but still 3 to 6 inches of rain is a relatively solid rainfall total. Swells are going to be very significant here. I saw that the Department of Meteorology from Barbados was already talking about 10 to 13 foot swells, and I'll show you some of the wave height potential, and that certainly goes along to some double-digit swells coming in. Obviously, that's going to lead to some life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. So all of our friends here in the southern side of the Lesser Antilles need to start getting prepared, as impacts are likely to be expected beginning late on Sunday, especially overnight into Monday morning, and then throughout the day on Monday. And again, the official forecast has this as a Category 2 hurricane getting closer to Barbados there. Let's see, the winds at that point in time would be 100 miles an hour, and then moving just south of Barbados on this track, which could still change, obviously, as a Category 3 major hurricane. It then pushes off towards the west, and as we go deeper into next week, we're going to have to keep an eye on places like Hispaniola and then Jamaica as we head towards the end of this. Now, we'll talk about how this could, affect those areas coming up. We'll get into the here and now of the Lesser Antilles first, but there could be some significant impacts for portions of Hispaniola and Jamaica. You can see that the forecast track line goes right through Jamaica. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the GFS model here. Then we're going to look at several different models coming up. I'm going to loop this up for you right now. The orange formation zone, I'm just going to take this off just so we're clear, is for the system behind Beryl, but it is now an orange 60% chance. It's not expected to get as strong because it'll be moving into the same areas that Beryl was, but it still could be a significant, system that we're gonna have to keep a close eye on for you here. So let's talk about the timing on the GFS model. First of all, again, rain today, not associated with Beryl. Here comes Beryl basically down the center line of this from the Hurricane Center. Let me get the model timeline on there. You see that on the top left-hand side of your screen. So this is going to be Sunday evening at 11:30. All right. So Beryl is still east of Barbados in the Windward Islands, but we'll start to see the outer bands coming in. We'll start to see some heavier rain and obviously kicking up the surf and sea conditions as well. And again, on the forecast track from the GFS, Beryl just continues to strengthen as it gets closer to the Windward Islands. This is going to be your Monday morning at 11 a.m. and then pushing off towards the west, basically down the center line from the Hurricane Center. Again, friends, we don't want to focus on any one area. The impacts are going to be felt much wider from this cone, especially on the northern sides. My friends in Dominica and Martinique and Guadeloupe need to pay very close attention to this, especially for any track shift to the north, which is still subject to change, obviously, here. But again, we're now getting within about a 36-hour window when impacts are likely to be expected. And again, additional hurricane watches and warnings are going to be thrown up for some of these islands, and I'll keep you up to date on that as well. Right now, it's just for Barbados, but that is going to change. So we can see what the GFS model does. It takes it down this center line, and the Hurricane Center really kind of goes along with it. Now, as we get into our Tuesday, we start to see on the GFS model, Beryl become impacted by the mountainous terrain of Hispaniola on the northern side, so it does begin to weaken, but there could be some significant impacts to the southern side of Hispaniola and then moving through Jamaica as we get into our Wednesday, still as a potential Category 2 hurricane. Now, the GFS weakens Beryl quicker compared to the official forecast from the Hurricane Center because there's simply more land interaction with Hispaniola helping to rip apart the storm. Again, this is a very mountainous island. There's a lot of terrain. There would be a lot of dry air ingested on the north side of Beryl if it gets this close to the island. The European model is farther to the south, which keeps it stronger because there's simply not as much land interaction. But again, areas like Hispaniola, Dominican Republic and Haiti, and Jamaica really need to keep a very watchful eye. Back over to the model here, we're going to take a look at the wind now. And again, fast moving, so rain is going to be an issue, obviously, but 3 to 6 inches. I mean, if it was slower, obviously, we could be talking about some double-digit rainfall totals, but that's not likely with the forward speed expected out of Beryl to continue, high teens, maybe low 20s miles per hour. So it is forecast to move pretty quick. So let's take a look at the winds now on the GFS model, and I've got a couple different models to show you here as well. So I'm going to look at this and let's see, bring it back out in time for you here. That's the second system, by the way. So this is Beryl coming in. Again, this is going to be late on our Sunday evening here, the 30th. And again, the wind speeds associated with Beryl on the GFS model are going to be lower compared to what we see from the Hurricane Center. The GFS doesn't have it strengthening as quickly. You're going to find a little bit of hurricane force winds here, but not as much. As we stair step into time, the GFS now starts to get stronger as it approaches Barbados. Those are the yellows that you see. Now we're picking up solid Category 1 hurricane winds before it gets to Barbados. And that's the biggest thing, is that regardless of when this starts to ramp up beyond a minimal hurricane, it's all expected in all of the models to happen before it reaches Barbados and the Windward Islands. And again, on the GFS model, this continues to strengthen. We see some winds here as it approaches St. Vincent and the Grenadines that could be approaching 100 miles an hour or slightly over that. So we're into deep Category 2 hurricane strength by then. And then as it passes the St. Vincent and the Grenadines area, we're maybe have a little bit of interaction with the islands there. It brings it back down. But note, the Hurricane Center officially has it as a Category 3. So it is beyond what the GFS model is currently showing as of strength. Notice we stay with that center line. There might be a little bit of wind shear to deal with in the Eastern Caribbean, but not much. Then we get back up to winds that could be, again, approaching 100 miles an hour, but still below what the Hurricane Center has. And then there's that land interaction with Hispaniola, still a hurricane at this point in time, and then driving into Jamaica and beginning to weaken. But it could stay a hurricane before it gets to the eastern tip of Jamaica. So that's what it looks like on the GFS model. Those spaghetti plots that I showed you, this is the strength from those spaghetti plots. And I just want you to notice that a vast majority of them are north of that Category 1 line. Anywhere above here is your hurricanes, and we do have some getting into high-end Category 2, low-end Category 3. And you see the time at the bottom of your screen. That's going to coincide with it moving across the Lesser Antilles on Monday morning. This is the European model. I mentioned it's a little bit farther off to the south. Now, that is when it's through the Caribbean. It is right in step with the other models into the southern side of the Lesser Antilles, including Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines area, but it keeps the course south of Jamaica and Hispaniola. That might be good news, but a stronger storm, and again, with Jamaica and Hispaniola being on the northern side, they're going to have the strongest winds. It then does push it into Central America and the Yucatan, and that's something I'll be monitoring for the end of the week. Looking at the European pressure forecast here, guys, I'm going to step to this side of your screen. We're going to go from best case scenario to worst case scenario. So the European model has this as about a 989, 990 millibar, generally higher end tropical storm moving in, but nothing really supports this staying a tropical storm, to be quite honest. I mean, we're already at 60-mile-an-hour winds. More than likely, this is going to be a hurricane. So the European model, latest run of the deterministic, quite honestly, is just simply too weak. If we look at the GFS model, I'll take myself off camera for this one, you can see it's a much stronger storm. Pressures are falling down to around 983 millibars. And again, strengthening as it moves through and just south of Barbados and then into St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia. Again, this is during the day on Monday. At first image is going to be basically at midnight, and then throughout the day Monday, that is going to be the track, and again, right through St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But again, impacts will be felt farther away. This is the HAFS model, okay? This is one of the newer models out there, okay? And we'll get more into this one, but this is a very high resolution model from the Hurricane Center. And I'm taking myself off screen, friends, because I want you to note on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, the wind intensity, okay? And these are sustained winds at the surface. So the HAFS model is much more intense. It does have a major hurricane moving through the Leeward Islands on Monday. And you can see the time frame on the top right hand side of the screen. That is 1 a.m. And then it moves south of Barbados. It's right in the same line. It's just a much stronger storm. And to be quite honest, the Hurricane Center is mentioning how this is not, it's not out of the woods. Like, this is a possibility that Beryl gets this strong before it moves into the islands. I think a hurricane is a definite. Category 2 is a possibility, and a major Category 3 is not out of the question. Unfortunately, that's the situation. Now, we follow the HAFS model throughout the entire run. You can see it moving up towards Hispaniola, closer to where the GFS is, and then moving across Jamaica on Wednesday again, still as a hurricane. So this is, we're just basically following the HAFS model here with Beryl moving again into the Caribbean. There's, of course, Haiti, and then into Jamaica. I'll let that run one more time. So we're just extending this out, but it stays a very significant hurricane here on the HAFS model as it gets into the eastern and the central sides of the Caribbean, and then holds together even into the northwest Caribbean. I mentioned the wave heights and the directions. Look at this. First of all, that first surge is going to be from Beryl with wave heights 10, 12, 14 feet. Then that second push of rainbow colors is the other system behind it. There is going to be a lot of wave action here for the entire Caribbean and the Western Atlantic. I mean, all the way up towards the Bahamas and then pushing all the way into the Northwest Caribbean. So any boaters out there need to be very cautious, even well away from where we're talking about Beryl coming, because we're going to have some very high easterly swells outside. Okay, so for Tropical Storm Beryl, here's who needs to be on alert. Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Grenada, Martinique, Dominica for sure. Other areas like Trinidad and Tobago and Nueva Esparta, and then other areas north in the Lesser Antilles, please stay vigilant as well. Also, please check in with your local government and your local officials. I will pass along official information, but for any local, for the steps you need to take to keep you and your family safe, please check in with your local departments of meteorology and your local officials for those statements, okay? And then down the road, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Jamaica. Friends, make sure, if you wouldn't mind, to like this video. I appreciate all of our new subscribers here to Meteo Mundo. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing this video with anyone that you think might need it. Thank you for the memberships. Thank you for the super things. I'm not done, because before we get out of here, I do want to mention what's going to be happening with Invest 94L. We do have some heavy rain right now, Cancun, Cozumel, towards Belize and portions of Guatemala. There's a 40% chance that 94L will develop in the southwest side of the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to be short-lived if it does, and then move inland towards Mexico. There will still be some heavier rain for portions of Central America and maybe the Cayman Islands. Other places will be drying out a bit. We could get a few more storms towards Jamaica as well. But again, this tropical wave that's coming through well ahead of Beryl will bring some rain to portions of the Greater and Lesser Antilles throughout the day as well. Okay, friends, you can follow us across social media, Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, myMediaMundo@gmail.com. I love to hear from you. Drop it in the comments section below where you're viewing from. If you have a specific question, again, I will be live here today at 5 p.m. at Meteo Mundo. I'll also have the 24/7 live stream going up in between these videos and my live coverage. So make sure you check in with that for all the latest information. Friends, have a great remainder of your Saturday. I will see you at 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, for the latest information on Beryl right here at Meteo Mundo.